Hi, everybody. In the FIO SIG Automation Meeting, October 25th. Let's take a look at what we have on the agenda. As far as I can see, there's just two items. One is to have a little discussion about cloud provider specific code in FIO controllers. So this came up as Alexi on the call.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yeah. So Alexi had submitted. So in our Bootstrap controller, right now it supports CAPI. One of the things it has to do is it has to get connectivity information to the newly created cluster. And so it uses a CAPI specific set of logic to do that. And Alexi, correct me here if I'm wrong, but Alexi is creating an OpenShift version, opinionated installation, and needs to be able to do the same thing to bootstrap the workload, the new cluster anyway. And so the code is structured so that you can sort of plop in a case in a switch statement. I'll show my comment though. My concern is that, and I discuss it here, over time, we're going to grow the number of providers we support. And if we build pieces of code that embed each of those individual provider-specific libraries, in particular, I'm concerned about the libraries, although the logic too, but really the libraries. What happens is you end up with a binary that's got all the AWS libraries, all the OpenShift libraries, all the GCP libraries, all the Microsoft libraries, right? And the dependency management of that. Like anytime any one of those changes, you're needing to bump it and everybody's kind of locked together. This is a problem that the Kubernetes had early on. So what they did is they spent a few years splitting things out into separate controller managers, separate binaries for each cloud provider. And so I was thinking it'd be nice to start from that state than spend years having to disentangle a mess. So that's what my comment is basically. Can we refactor it? We wanted to get people's thoughts here. That the question would be, do we really need to do it in R2, or should we go ahead and merge this, and then in R3 make the effort to split out into separate per provider binaries? Does that capture, Alexi?
Yeah, well, I don't think the question is should we do this in R2. I'm probably willing to do that change for R2.
Oh, okay.
So my point, the reason I wanted to bring this up today is first to raise awareness that we want to bring a little bit of a structure in how we can hook in cloud provider specific implementation for the Bootstrap controllers. That was one of the reasons I wanted to make sure we had at least a couple of minutes on this. And the second is to ensure that at least there is an alignment on the path that you proposed here. It's perfectly fine with me, but I want to make sure that there is, if any other opinions, that there's discussion, because I want to make sure I don't redo the work that I want to do multiple times.
Yeah.
So let's take a couple of minutes and let's do it. Let's do the design or high-level design properly right from the get-go. So as we scale, as you said, it's easier to maintain, right? Each cloud provider can maintain their own library, and we just hook that in the Bootstrap controller. Or actually, I think the idea is that we ask the Bootstrap controller to delegate to that library. And for me, that's perfectly fine. I just want to, yeah.
Yeah, we can discuss. Let's let Paula talk. I have thoughts about that, but let's let Paula talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Apologies, I not looked at it. So my questions or statements
we just added
already done. Okay, cool. Thank you. So I think for the actual workloads, we went with the provider model, right? So can we do this same kind of a model for here too? Like there'll be different providers for different infrastructure. CAPI is one provider. Obviously, to your point, John, like GCP is one provider, AWS, OpenShift, and whatnot. So can we go with that model, and then the intent, uh, uh, the person who is actually requesting to create an infrastructure could express the desire where exactly this needs to be done, and based on that, a provider acts on that, so that everything is loosely coupled at that point of time.
So would that mean it would be a new field in the workload cluster CRD, right, to make the provider selection? Is that something of the sort you're thinking?
Yeah, something of that sort, yes. Because otherwise, if we do that, then everything is independent, everything is separate, and then there is no entanglement like what John was talking about. And also, it's maybe clean.
I think that's essentially, yes, I think that's probably what we want to do, in my opinion. I think that's sort of what I proposed here. Yeah, I think that's probably the best approach. I don't actually like for different, you'll actually have different, there's two aspects. One is specifically around workload cluster provisioning. And the only provider we need right now, we can do everything through packages, except for the bootstrap. And in fact, for GCP, I don't need the bootstrap. I can do that through, because the GCP APIs allow me to do the bootstrapping. The APIs support that. They just, but for, as far as I know, everybody else, we do need the bootstrapper, which a provider model would allow the provider to decide to do whatever they need to do, right? Whether I don't need it, but somebody else needs it, or you need something else. So that's one aspect. I think for the workload cluster specifically, a provider model makes sense. We should follow the same patterns we're following in other places. More specifically, though, I'm also talking about the code organization. So rather than, like, we have this Nephew controller manager, I want that to remain kind of purely upstream stuff. I think CAPI is part of the Kubernetes project, and it makes sense to potentially include CAPI implementation directly into that controller manager. Even though that you could argue that that's not necessary, because some people don't need CAPI, right? But my main point is that what we build, like separating the code artifacts. So what we build, the Nephew controller manager, that shouldn't embed stuff from a bunch of different cloud providers. Instead, we should allow us to run in parallel a separate controller manager for each cloud provider. Ideally, one controller manager that has all of the different reconcilers for a given provider. So for OpenShift right now, it's a bootstrap, but there may be 5 other ones you need to integrate to different parts, to integrate with the IAM. I don't know, but for GCP, I might need totally different ones. I want ones that integrate with our fleet management. Right now, and I talk about those a little bit, those are in ports. I want to move those out and put them in a separate binary. But like the idea is, as somebody running Nephew, I can say, oh, I want to integrate with GCP. I'm going to run the GCP controller manager. Oh, I want to run with AWS. I can run that one, and I can run them both. And that way I can integrate with both, and I can run the OpenShift one at the same time. I can run all 3, but I only need to run the ones I actually want to support. Tal?
Yeah, this is a huge topic, but so what I tried to show during the summit in my TKO POC was that and it went very quickly, I know, that there's a lot more to this than just what CAPI provides. It's a lot more than just provisioning a cluster. It's really, I think, deeply embedded in our philosophy of satisfying infrastructure requirements, right? So we have infrastructure requirements for network functions. That's different than just provisioning a site, which actually happens very rarely, I think, in the telco use cases. Usually the sites are provisioned by other systems. You have a fleet, and it's more about installing the workloads. But the workloads, our workloads, come with info requirements, right? That's kind of what makes telco workloads special sometimes. So what you need to do is actually satisfy those requirements, but those can be very different per cloud provider, right? For example, in GDCE, satisfying a specific requirement might be configuring the top of the rack switch with a VLAN. In OpenShift, it might be configuring the OVN fabric. In Amazon, it might be working with their public cloud APIs to do something there, right, in terms of networking. So I think our view needs to be a bit more comprehensive than that. I would be happy to go deeper into this part of what my POC shows, and maybe give it. It tries to be very simple as an example of how to think rather than how to implement. And I think that might be going a step. So before we decide where to put the code, John, as you say, how to organize the code, I think we need to really have a good approach to doing this. So I agree with Alexi too, that this is so important that I think we need to take it a little bit slowly and actually make really clear proposals over the architecture and what we're trying to achieve. Yeah, go ahead, Alexi.
Yeah, I think both you and John are to some extent saying the same thing. Like, we agree that there is a need for cloud provider specific controllers and reconcilers, whatever are the functionality they supply. Now, I think the question that you're raising, Tal, is more from a Nefio management standpoint, but not management of the code and functions of the workload, more management of the repos and release type of management functions, where it end up being. And I understand that we can take a slower approach to, or not a slower, but we need to put good thoughts into how we want to make sure, enable Nefio to be multi-vendor. And ultimately, this is what it means, right? Right now, I took a very quick stab at supporting what I wanted it to support, and that's the intention with that PR. But I understand and appreciate that it's raising a broader architecture discussion and design overall. And so then my question is, I don't want to derail R2 scope with this, because I doubt this is in the scope today. And John, I was talking to you and I was saying, well, maybe, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Alexia, I want to suggest that I don't intend to have the discussion block. This is always my approach. Yes, we have big things to do, but they don't have to block from contributions, right? If your code sits somewhere now, and then in R3 we want to put it in a more decoupled state, that's fine. I think it's okay to have our architecture keep evolving, right? This is not a waterfall approach project. So yeah, I'm not saying that I don't want your contribution. On the contrary, I would love it.
No,
but
I
think we
understand
can
that.
do both things at the same time. We can accept contributions and also discuss how to evolve them into something broader.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. So the main question here is, right now, my contribution, honestly, is a very little PR and not very, very, very rocket science, but I'm willing to put some effort, right, to move away the cloud provider specific code and start building some sort of the structure that John suggested here. But the question is, should I put the effort in doing that now, or rather should I wait for that more in-depth discussion that we might be having in R3? I want to make sure I'm putting the effort at the right place, right? So if you're telling me let's wait, then it's maybe 50 line of code that I'm adding in this PR is not going to be a big issue, right, to refactor. But then if all of a sudden we have AWS, Google, and everybody submitting 50 line of code, then it's going to be an issue, right? So I want to make sure I'm not in a rush to get this by any means. I was communicating with John. Of course, if it can make in R2, that's awesome for me. But if it can't, it's not a big deal neither. So what matters to me is that we make the right architecture and design call. So I would just want to leave that on the table, and that's the reason I brought that up for today's meeting. So I'm looking for guidance what to do now for the short term, And the answer could be, let's wait for R3. I'm fine with everything.
I will vote against that answer. But anyway, it looks like we have, we need to show progress. It looks like Vish, I think, was next, and then.
Yeah, so I think some of the great points raised about the cloud-specific provider, right? And also making sure that we don't have coupling there, right? Because I'm also thinking that some of the cloud providers, are they expected, first question is, to push any code into the Nephew repository at all? Or would they be doing something in their own repos and actually claiming support for, hey, we support Nephew? I'm just trying to understand that. So John.
So what I suggest in the issue is that we still want, so the Nephew repository, I would say, ideally, no, there's no cloud specific stuff, cloud provider specific stuff in there, or network function provider specific stuff in there for that matter. That doesn't mean the Nephew project. Like, I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that within the Nephew project, and this would be up for debate too, but within the Nephew project, there's an OpenShift repository, and that's managed by the community and owned by the community, and it's OpenShift support for Nephew, but it's a separate repository, and the owners are probably going to be all people from Red Hat, right? The owners files, right? So like, it means that it's still part of our distribution, but it's not necessarily, it's not entangled with our code, and you can just not run that if you're not in OpenShift. And from a maintenance perspective, it sort of doesn't entangle one binary with every cloud provider. It's sort of, it's just that one, as the OpenShift libraries update, that updates, as the AWS libraries update, the AWS one updates. That's my thinking.
Okay. And also, when we talk about this, some of these IPAM and VLAN specializers and stuff, are they going to be part of the Nephew core? Or are they, can it also be specific to, is there a plan?
Yeah. So if you look at the IPAM and VLAN ones, they have a gRPC, generic gRPC interface. They could talk to any IPAM backend that supports that interface. The code that implements the gRPC server that translates that interface into info blocks or whereabouts or of mice and men or whoever there are out there, or bespoke in-house AT&T IPAM, that wouldn't be part of the Nephew repository. Again, I'm open to vendor-specific, per vendor, basically, repository within the Nephew project that could be distributed with the project. I'm open to that, and I think we can have that discussion separately. But the interfaces, the common interfaces that we use, and the common code that the client is actually completely generic and doesn't care about what the backend server is. So the specializer itself, which is a client, that should live in the Nephew repository. Those IP claim, VLAN claim APIs are part of the Nephew project and would be expected, for example, to be supported, be able to be supported.
Cloud providers? I see.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think Bala was next.
Yeah, I was directly gonna answer. I had an opinion about what Alexis asked. I know you will be moving away from this to the more like a provider model. The architecturally that's gonna evolve. And Alexis' immediate question was, what do we do with this particular PR? I mean, if everybody is okay, I'm okay with having this PR. I mean, it's in the main code base, if it doesn't muddy up the things too much, if it is only a little bit, which can be refactored later. I'm fine with that. With saying that no further such enhancements to the other providers will accept, or no new work in this particular thing will come until we decide the architecture. That was my opinion. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I think Victor's next.
Yes. So probably I'm agree with that comment. Basically, my criteria could be we have to have the support for the code that we are able to test it, and able to test it is not just able to demonstrate that it's working. It's just like what we have in the CI. So I know that most of these additional providers, we have to have license or like additional things. And especially that's a very, very, very huge topic when we were talking about the CI and how can we integrate a license and access to all these services, external services. So probably my recommendation is mostly is that criteria. Like we can have it whatever in the Nephew core repositories, what we are able to just to test it or to
That
provide
makes
this.
So if I can paraphrase what you're saying, if we want to have an OpenShift repository, then we would ask Red Hat to provide licenses or somehow support to be able to add it to our CI.
Yeah, otherwise it's going to be huge problem especially for the CI.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. Ravi.
Yeah, I was thinking this more from the perspective of how we kind of dealt with, say something like free 5GC. I mean, the network function deployment in general, where we came up with this kind of meta CRs that were kind of more vendor neutral, or basically implementation neutral, which you just said, okay, this is say a UPF, it requires these number of interfaces, and these interfaces logical interfaces mapped to these networks and so on, and then that were kind of iterated, and then at the workload deploy cluster level is where you actually come up with vendor dependent kind of configurations. But I don't see we have applied a similar workflow for workload cluster deployments. There's no such meta CRs that is kind of implementation dependent. Probably, I'm not sure if that is another use case that we want to tackle. And basically, because I thought that was also an important use case that Nephew wanted to address.
So that's a good point. So I think that that's kind of similar to Tal's point. And what I want to say is that or it's also similar to the idea of the provider model. So we do a little bit have that. This is where I kind of want to separate out. I've talked in the past about consumption APIs versus provisioning APIs. And so we have our workload cluster API, which provides I mean, it's a little bit of what you're saying. It's very crude and very primitive. And I think there's a discussion going on right now, maybe in the NF to infra or something, about expanding that. The thing we have to be super careful about, and I think we can do it, is that the details of provisioning infrastructure is really complicated. And I don't want us to try to come up with some lowest common denominator model. What I want us to do is focus on allow people. So what we do is we put it into packages, right? So like when we in my GCP implementation, I have a package for a workload cluster. In the OpenShift one, we have a package for a workload cluster. In the CAPI one, we have a package for a workload cluster. And the common thread that our controllers operate on is that workload cluster CR. And that's what they use. And that's the stuff that Nephew controllers need to understand. All the details of what KRM resources are used to provision clusters in those different environments, Nephew shouldn't have to care about. And so there's going to be it is a similar model. It's just not as well developed, I think, is mainly the point. But we do need this provider. And this comes into play specifically around the bootstrap. Like that's one function that the Nephew models don't capture today. And so we're implementing provider specific functionality for that. The reason they don't capture it today is because we only did CAPI. Like one possible solution to this would be to define a cluster connectivity resource that provides us with basically a kube config, right? And make it the responsibility of those per provider controllers to populate that resource for each workload cluster they generate. And so it decouples us. So that's, I think what you're saying is true, and I think that's in line with what other people are suggesting.
Okay, yeah, exactly. That exactly. I was trying to see exactly where, what would be the set of CRs which we vendor neutral, and where the other vendor specific kind of controls and actions come together, right? So, and I was just trying to, because seeing that we did that for network function, but probably we didn't do it for workload cluster deployment.
Yeah, and see, on network function, we kind of
yeah.
focused on the provisioning side. Like we want to deploy all these, whereas we're kind of focused on, we need to know about the clusters. We do provision the clusters too, but we kind of like, it's completely opaque. We just it's all in the package. I mean,
Exactly.
we don't. Yeah, which is okay, but it's not where we need to be in the long run. Alexei,
Yeah,
let's
just
give this
a little.
like 2 more minutes.
Yeah, it's way longer than I expected, John. I apologize.
Okay.
But if I may nitpick just a little bit on the last sentence you say, I don't see the value of creating a generic secret resource, or here's how you connect resource. It creates a shim layer that then every cloud provider has to support, and the benefit is none, because if I'm a cloud provider, I know how to get to that recipe, right? So what is the benefit of that shim layer, specifically, for instance, for that kube config? I definitely, to Tal's point, understand the benefit of this when you need, for instance, to instantiate an IP or things of the sort that are more common and that are required for network functions. But things that are specifically at the infrastructure provider layer, anyway, I'm nitpicking because I don't think we need to have the debate now.
Okay.
But I want to be
That's
mindful that we shouldn't just create an abstraction for the sake of creating one. We need to ensure that it provides value, and that's my main point.
100% agree. Well, we have to ask the question is, how many use cases are there where we need to reach from the management cluster to the workload cluster? And if there's more than just Bootstrap, then we may want to consider an abstraction there, right? Like right now, our model is the repositories intermediate populating workload clusters, except in the Bootstrap. And we don't have a status flowing back the other way, but if we did, it could be edge clusters reaching back to management cluster if we wanted to, or through the metrics pipeline that exists today. So those are bigger questions for debate, whether we want to even allow, like my understanding is that there are many situations where, the security implications of things reaching from the central to the edge might be an issue, but I don't know for sure. It's a SIG one thing.
So if I'm
I'll take it.
Yes, and thank you for that. So I'm not sure what's the takeaway now for this specific PR and request.
I think the takeaway.
What should I do?
What I'm hearing, and I would maybe go with what Bala suggested, and let's just merge this with the condition that we don't continue to merge additional providers within this code base without a refactor. We do have an issue Victor raised about testing, right? I don't know how we test this, but that's maybe something you can also work on in parallel around getting us. However, I assume we can run OpenShift on GCP VMs, so maybe we can test that way.
Well, yeah, the aspect of how we run OpenShift, you don't have to worry. I can work that out. But again, I don't want. Sorry. So let's take it offline, actually, because I apologize.
Okay.
I said I wouldn't rush. So let's take it offline. What we do with this. But thank you for the discussion, John and everyone.
Okay, Vish, you have your hand up still.
Oh yeah, I mean, so I'm glad we have one cloud provider doing this, which means it will flush out a bunch of issues. Like, for example, I don't think I was always thinking that the bootstrap controller that we had, which is needed for the sandbox, or maybe for CAPI, may not always be needed for other cloud providers, I'm thinking. And also there are situations wherein, there are existing cluster deployments out there, and Nefio might just be one of the operators that will get deployed there in those environments, like we have app cluster already out there. So, which means this will help with more decoupling if need be, and we can pick and choose some of these components that needs to be run. And also some cloud providers might want to just pick the package management aspect of what Nefio offers, and then where we are able to provide that package management, we use the package variant set and all this, we build that, and we're able to consume that, and probably even like things like, and if they have their own, well, I was going to bring up VLAN again and IPAM, but if they all become very modular and only can be picked and chosen, they can actually work with some existing brownfield deployments as well, as my thinking. So yeah. I think from that aspect, what Alexi has done is a good start to identifying some of this and start to decouple some of these things. It's a good opportunity.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, good discussion. All right, why don't we move on to just a status update on R2. Bala, do you want to take the floor on this one, or?
Yeah, I think I pasted the link. I think I can paste the link again.
Yeah, I see it here. Oh.
Yeah, I pasted it just to be in the top. Yeah.
Okay, are you seeing it now? Do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to?
Yeah, that's. I mean, if you could, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I think one update is we unblocked Rado with the access to the experimental repo. So now he can go ahead with the tasks that are related to that one. I think many of them are in progress, and Rado told me that by the end of this week, many of his tasks will be done. That one, or we can go one by one. Do we have people?
It might be more efficient for people who are like going one by one. What did I just do?
Yeah, I think
we can go with people who are here, right, and give updates.
Yeah, exactly. Right, like maybe the people who are here.
Yeah, the only thing is I don't know that
did hear from
rolling back and forth. Like we can
first preference to people who are here, and then we can go through the rest of it. Session.
Yeah,
pardon me.
What? Yep. Okay.
I'm sorry, I did not follow that. Everybody talked over each other.
Yeah, I mean, we can do either one. My only concern was if we go issue by issue, at least we'll have coverage of all the issues. Sure. And we'll time box it. We'll not spend more than like a minute or so per issue.
Okay, my concern is I'm not sure if these are all the issues that we had hoped to get in R2. Are they? Like, I know these are categorized as sprint 1. There's like 54 issues here, and there's
yeah, I think we have a good enough. That one I can check, but we have good enough coverage for there in the board. Yeah.
Okay, we'll try to go through it. Yeah, you're right. We're sure to cover everything, even if somebody's not here. We can just pass on that issue. But yeah, Sandeep.
No, I mean, it's just on the epics of SDK. If we get a chance, I would like to discuss. I think yesterday I missed the point. So if you discuss on SDK epic, I would like to.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's just start. So is Joseph here?
I'm there.
Yeah. Joseph, what is please
share. I can
share.
probably give a summary of OA ran. So in the last meeting, I think we had an action item to create a CRD for RAN and for core for all the NFs together. Yeah, so we have I've created a pull request in the API repository. So I think that is the repository we'll have to create. So maybe we can review that and see. So everything is actually based on that API. So the controller code changes, the packages, all those changes will be based on this. So maybe yeah, just
Okay, so you're asking for people to review this. This is what's blocking you is getting this merged.
yeah. So this is one of the items. So once this is done, then we can make the changes on the controller side. The controller code is also there. A pull request is already there, and review is ongoing. So any changes to this spec API, I'll take those changes in. And also, I feel that this might be the very initial CRD, so it might not be the full-fledged CRD. So it might just be for R2, and currently it might be very specific to OAI. And
Understand.
yeah, and I think there are other dependencies. For example, the NF deployment API. I think Wim was working on it. There's some corrections to be made. I had made a comment on that. I think that needs to be merged so that I can use that further in the controller code.
Which one is that? Just so we.
I think if you go to the in the API, in the
this one needs to merge.
API. Yeah, there is one for I think created by Wim.
Created by Wim. Okay.
In the API.
So you're talking about enough
API
deployment,
repo.
right?
Yeah, in the API repository.
Oh, in the API repository. Okay. Let's just go to that repository.
Yeah, that one only. I think you just highlighted the fourth one. The revert optional tags. Yeah.
This one. Okay.
Yeah. So I had a comment there as well. So.
So this needs to be. Okay.
So
you have a dependency on that one, Joseph?
Yeah, right. So I'll be using these APIs in the controller code.
Okay.
Okay. But your API PR does not have the dependency, right? Basically, your controller code has a dependency.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So the API PR also is like the controller code is dependent on this actually.
Oh.
And
yeah, so both of them.
And one more thing was I think Akash was working on the KRM functions for this new NF deployment function. So that also needs to be merged. So that is also pending. So that I can test using that KRM function images.
Okay, so that's so you should be able to just for your development level testing, like to make progress, you should be able to just build those and push them to, somewhere.
Right, but I had some questions, and if those changes are there, or will it be implemented? So those.
Is this the one here?
Yeah, correct.
From Akash, it says do not merge right now. So okay, so that's still.
So if it's kind of ready, then I can download it and create the image locally and then test it as well.
Is that Akash on the call?
And I think one more is I spoke to Rado regarding the Docker builds, and he has raised a PR for his changes to be merged so that the builds can be triggered for OAI as well. So that is another PR that needs to be.
Okay. All right.
So that,
wow,
that will be in the infra, right? That will be in the infra side, I think.
Yeah, I saw that PR, so I can paste it in chat, which are the PR.
Yeah. Victor, can you please review that and mark that one?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Is that in here or that's in the?
That will be the infra, I think. test info.
I put it in the chat, so you can find it.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Yeah, I might. It's too hard to keep track of both. All right. Okay. So we got our work. We got work to do there to help out Joseph's progress. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Anything else on OAI RAM?
So
yeah,
on,
nothing. Yeah, Bala.
So the one thing is about the packages is that do we have a PR for that also?
I can raise a PR. I have it locally, but I was thinking that based on this new spec, I will need to update it anyways.
Okay.
So I was just waiting on that. So yeah.
So what
Or
do you
I can
think,
just
John?
raise a
Yeah, I
PR
think
to get some initial review. That also I can do.
yes.
Why
I
not?
would. I think that I would recommend that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Joseph. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
What is the status, Joseph? Of I don't know if Sagar's here also. What is the status? Is that your API? This is that, right? That API change?
No, this is Vim's changes, I think, for the common NF API.
This is NF deployment, right? This is consolidating NF deployment.
Okay, so Wim's wasn't able to be here today, so okay, that's fine. All right, Stephen, NF topology controller, anything?
So I have the API patch PL. Sorry, I haven't linked it anyway, but it actually failing pre-submit anyway. I have to fix it, and then I'll have the design doc PL out based on what John and I talked about a little bit. So I have to update something in there. Yeah, so those two you can expect to.
You just in the interest of time, add the PRs here for people.
Yeah.
Then that way.
Yep.
You don't have anything
Those
blocking
two.
you, right? But you want people. You need people to review your PRs, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Are we doing anything? Speaker here. Are we doing anything with the Helm integration? I mean, that was a POC that we're working towards. Like, what's the plan?
I think there was two particular efforts in this one and the SDK. I think Helm integration. I think we put the acceptance as come out with the documentation of a preferred thing. That was the thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that probably applies. So this is the same. Deliverable for R2 designs, pros, cons, recommendations.
Yeah. Yes, that was
Did we have
last week. That for SDK, the deliverable for R2 is just documents.
Do we have a GitHub discussion started for that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think Sandeep wanted to talk. Sandeep also wanted to talk something about this. Sandeep, I mean, it's gonna take a little bit of minutes. Can we get to it after the board?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm afraid if we wait, we're not going to get to it if we try and.
Yeah.
I guess.
I can just put my
covered all the OAI stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if you just allow me, I can just finish quickly.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Yeah, the thing is yesterday we are having weekly SDK meeting discussion, and yesterday I missed it. So I went through the recording and I found some sort of comments. So I just wanted to put this point. See, we, as you know, we have already demoed in face-to-face. We have developed one SDK which actually converts the Helm charts into the operator codes, and then it helps in onboarding the NFs. OAI has already used it. What Joseph and Sagar is using, all the controllers are actually bootstrapped by this SDK, which we trying to contribute. The only discussion was pending that shall it go to experimental repo or the Nephew project repo. We wish to go. We from our side wish it to be going to the Nephew project and R2 ideally for us. But the point was there was few things that where is the code, right? So how do we see the code, and how do we evaluate the code, and how do we provide the code comments, and how do we use it? So for that, I think I have a proposal. We feel that we can I discussed a little bit with Stephen that we can create a PR for that in the SDK repo, and in that way we open up the code, and in that way all the communities can see the code, evaluate the code, provide the comments on the code, and use it, right? And using the different help charts which they have. We have already used on the many help charts, even free 5GC. Anybody can use it and provide the comment. And if it is good enough, and if you can provide the code quality comments and all the things, that's good for us. We already have a design document for it, and I have published the design document in that. That also will be helpful to understand. And if the community feels that, okay, this is good enough and it is like should be part of the SDK or agenda, which we feel it will be because it moves the Helm charts NF into the Nephew world very quickly. So if they feel, then it can be merged. If they feel it's not ready yet, maybe we can postpone it. We can go to R3, and I can work with Stephen to see how it goes. So, I mean, that's the proposal I have. Maybe we wish to raise a PR for this, and all community. We wish that community should evaluate it and provide comments. That's all I'm asking. John, you are on mute.
On mute. I mean, definitely you can absolutely raise a PR. I mean, I think it's a community discussion. You know what? I don't know what it means for SDK. Like, it wouldn't be part of the distribution. People could use it. So, like, I don't know what it means, but
I mean, still okay. I mean, what we decided in SDK meeting, and we had a consensus that the NFU SDK will have a bunch of options, and we all agreed on that. And this could be one of the options based on the use case of the vendor can use it, right? That's what we already had a consensus. So I will be okay if during the R2 it is decided that, okay, this is not good enough right now. Maybe we can defer it. I mean, right now what I'm asking is the PR to be reviewed. That's all. I mean,
yeah, absolutely, a PR can be reviewed. Tal has a comment, I think.
Yeah, so I think you could potentially do both. I think it would be very nice to have it just as its own repo on FEO Experimental that anybody can use it, including even people who are not in the project in FEO. It will just be publicly available. Because if it's hidden inside a PR, yes, you can get that code, but it will not be, it's only for us here involved to use it, right? It only exists in a PR. It's not that trivial to get a PR out of GitHub to actually test. It's up to you, but I think you'll get more visibility if it's a separate repo. It makes it very easy to clone and just use.
Okay, fine. I mean, I think I can do both. Maybe we can raise PR and put in there also. But ideally, we think that I hope that it will be liked by the community. But let's see, no problem. Right.
So yeah, Sandeep, other point discussed yesterday. I that's why I want this topic to be the last, because it's gonna take some time. So one of the concerns yesterday was that was raised. This was a part of a POC epic that is as a in the R2 scope, and we were the community's point was all the POC stuff, which is not slated to be released in R2, should go to the experimental, either this or the other things. So that was their concern. I'm just echoing the community's concern. This is not my personal thing. The other is the main.
I would also like to say that this is not an official policy. So let's not say that as much. This is not an official policy. That if you have code, it has to go to experimental first before it goes into.
No. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
I was so even the. For example, I mean, even some of the people who are directly working on with you and this one, they were saying, we have not finalized the design, we have not finalized the tool, we have not finalized the functionalities of this SDK. So that's why it is still in that mode. Those were the concerns expressed by the community. I'm just echoing that what the community said in that. I'm trying to summarize what the community expressed yesterday.
Okay, I think that's a good point. What I'm trying to say is that I've already got the design document out in the public and people can review it. I even Stephen requested for it. So I mean, SDK is a topic, right? We already spent a lot of time there, and ideally we would like to have some sort of SDK available as part of the NFU. I mean, that's what my understanding is after all those discussion. So I feel that it will help.
Yes.
It is ready. I think this is the one of the SDK which is ready. Let's evaluate it is what I'm asking. I take a tall point to maybe put it in the both repository. Let's see that, but we just want to raise a PR and people can evaluate. Apart from that, if we feel that we can put in the experimental, we can see that. But this is our way of opening up the code to everyone, right? I feel one of the ways, right? You can decide, no problem.
Yeah, Sandeep. I think one thing we recognized, I think Ashish was in that call on Monday. If you want to push to the experimental, it can come the way it is right now. Maybe you have to do the others heading, etc.
Yes.
And then if it has to go to the main repo, then Ashish said that it does not have the unit testing coverage.
We will not raise a PR without unit test coverage.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Basically, so probably what we could do is if we were to take Tal's suggestion, then we can push it to experimental the way it is, and then have the unit testing coverage, and then raise a PR against the main repo.
Okay, fine.
I do want to say that if you post a big chunk of PR right now on the NFU repo, most likely the main reviewers would not have time to review them for now.
I'm not sure that much big.
I think that was probably one of the major things.
Yeah.
Because if you post it, if you want us to use it as an integration PLC or something, plug into a repo is actually not that bad. Because if you put it just as a PR, I'm not sure if, because the code is probably not small. I'm not sure at this juncture of our the main stakeholders will be able to review it very, very thoroughly.
Yeah.
To the point where we actually immersed it.
I think it's not that big, I think, but still I take your point.
Yeah, I think just to summarize, I think we had to move to the other. So I think just to summarize, probably we encourage Sandeep to and team, basically, obviously team to push it to experimental the way it is, and then raise a PR with the unit testing, and then the team can review it as time permits. And then is it the recommendation? I think that's the recommendation we are coming out collectively to Sandeep. Is there any objections to that?
I mean,
Sandeep, are you okay with that?
What I was saying that we will not raise any PR without unit test cases. Okay?
Yes.
And if that's ready, fine. If that's not ready, we'll not push it for sure.
Yeah. Please give us the PR. I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah. yes. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I guess let's try to get back to the board in the next few minutes we have left. OIRN we talked about. What about OAI core? What's the status of that since we
Sagar?
Yeah, I'm right here. Yeah. So since Joseph did the part of for the RAN configuration, I did the part for core configuration for common core and RAN configuration, and for the AMF configuration. So I have to release the PR now. That's what I'm doing it. And then after that, I also started adapting my operators using the NF deployment and provider. So I am done with that. So once these configuration CRDs get approved and everybody's fine with this, then I can adapt the configuration the way I'm doing it. So that's it. Then nothing much.
Okay, so you're going to raise some PRs that will need review. Are there any PRs you're waiting on to merge before you can proceed?
No, nothing exactly same as Joseph is waiting. It's all interlinked more or less.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So Sagar,
Anyways, yeah.
sorry, and once the APIs and everything merge, so basically your PRs will be against the OAI report, right?
Yes. No, wait. The CRD PRs which I am doing will be in the Nephew API repository, of course, because that I'm doing for that repository. And the operator which reside are in the and OAI repository.
Okay.
So of course, there is no Nephew reviewer actually.
Got it. Yeah. I know you made it easier for us to sign up, but thank you.
And of course, then this way nobody comes and check the PRs. Easier for me to merge.
All right. So we don't have WIM, so I don't think we can talk about that unless somebody else has an update.
That's also not part. I think we should remove it from R2.
Oh, you skipped one. You skipped us. 357.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I did. I missed it. Yes.
Sorry
Fish.
if I put it anyway. You're skipping me and Ravi. So, what do you think, John? It got merged. Is there any other action item that needs to be done on this?
I don't think so right now. You had talked about wanting to add support for GitHub. I think that's a separate PR.
Yeah.
But this one, I think. All right, cool. Okay, so this is done.
So we open a separate issue for GitHub if we need to, right? I mean, and that may or may not make. Is it something we desire for R2?
I think it would be a nice to have. I don't think we have a requirement for it, but it follows exactly the same pattern we talked about with the cluster providers, right? So we have exactly the issue of whether it gets built into the same controller or it gets into a separate controller, whether the repository, in this case, we are provisioning. It's a fairly simple resource and we're provisioning it. So, I have, like for GCP, I have totally different provisioning mechanism, but I'd love to see GitLab support and GitHub support. Yeah.
Fine, thanks.
It's not within our committed scope. Let's say that. Okay, we're over time. We're out of time. I'm still working on my thing. This probably won't happen in R2, although I have some code for it. But anyway, and you said Rado.
Yeah, the next you were coming to was my one-to-one break the one-to-one cluster, John. I just wanted to say that for R2, the output will probably be a document saying how it could be done in R3, if that would be all right.
Yeah.
I think that's what we. Okay, so
yeah. So I mean, and it's very closely tied to what Peter is doing with the Argo. There's a big connection there, so we kind of take that area and just maybe write something up. Okay. I will try and do a bit of pop work as well around it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. All right. Thank you all. And I guess there's a TSC meeting. I won't be there tomorrow, so if somebody else can handle the R2 updates, SIG updates, I would appreciate that, but I'm not able to be there. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.